Hello, people of YouTube land and those that are part of the Cringe Crew gaming community Discord, those that follow Ted and I on Twitch, and those that are listening to this on Spotify and whatever audio platform that we decide to put this on. I am Traductus.
And I'm Ted.
And this is the Cringe Crew Gaming movie review podcast. Did I get it right?
Yeah,
Did I miss anything?
I think you're good.
All right, sweet. Thank God we're on a roll with the Spartacus thing. We're not scuffing anything so far. And this podcast where we take a director's filmography, we review it, and then we talk about our likes, dislikes on the thing, rank it. And we are on Stanley Kubrick, and we finally got to Lolita. Made in 1962, described as a psychological comedy drama. We'll get to that. Based on the 1950, the controversial 1955 novel of the same title, by written by Vladimir Nabokov. This movie was obviously directed by Stanley Kubrick, and the screenplay is written by Vladimir Nabokov, and also Stanley Kubrick, but Stanley Kubrick is, shall we say, uncredited. And distributed by MGM, released June 13th, 1962, the United States, and had a budget of $1.5 to $2 million and made a box office return of $9.2 million. And that brings us into how this movie was basically made. With Nabokov's consent, Kubrick changed the order of events that unfold, where the ending of the novels at the beginning. Kubrick determined that while this sacrificed a great ending, it helped maintain interest, as he believed the interest in the novel sagged halfway through once a certain scene happens, which we will get to with likes and dislikes, and when Ted actually explains what the hell this movie is about.
Silence is good for podcasts.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to catch up here. Also, the second half contains an odyssey across the United States. Through the novel was set in the 1940s. Kubrick gave it a contemporary setting, shooting many exterior scenes in England and some projected shots from the United States, including upstate eastern New York. A lot of this was filmed in England because much of the movie was financed, had to be also spent in England, and also at the time, Kubrick suffered a deathly fear of flying, so therefore he wasn't going back to the United States. Um, Now, this film, due to its subject matter at the time of the film this was released, we didn't have the rating system of G, PG, PG-13, R. That was not in effect yet. What was in effect was the Hays Code dating back to the 1930s, and there was also pressure from that production code, and also the Catholic Legion of Decency at the time. And so therefore a lot of scenes are just heavily implied what happens. There's a lot of double entendre, and Kubrick actually said that if he would have known that he would have dealt with a lot of censorship issues while making this movie, he would not have made it. Now comes the casting. We have as the main. We're gonna just go with the main 4 people, and we're just going to add one more person in there just because, it ties into a podcast that we did before, the James Bond podcast. For a nurse, we have Lois Maxwell, who is known for playing Moneypenny in the James Bond films. But that's just kind of like I guess not necessarily a cameo, but like a bit part. But for the main cast, we have James Mason as Humbert, Humbert. Wow. 2 first names or 2 last names, whatever. James Mason, famous English actor, known for his roles in Odd Man Out, Seventh Veil, The Wicked Lady. I know him more so. Oh, he's also in Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest, but I mainly know him as Captain Nemo in the Walt Disney 1954 movie 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We also have Shelley Winters, who I did not recognize because she is young and skinny in this. She plays Charlotte Hayes Humbert, who ends up being the wife of James Mason's character and is the mother of Lolita. I know Shelley Winters from her roles as Ma Barker and Bloody Mama and Mrs. Rosen in the Poseidon Adventure, which I recommend watching because the Poseidon Adventure is the perfect disaster film. Like, it has everything great about a disaster film. And we have Sue Lyon, who plays the titular character Dolores Lolita Hayes. Sue Lyon is 14 while this movie was made, and she was 15 when the film finally was wrapped up. This is her first movie that she has been in. And then we have Peter Sellers as Claire Quilty / Dr. Zempf, who is, shall we say, James Mason's rival in this. Bleh. But Peter Sellers, best known for being Chief Inspector Clouseau in the Pink Panther series. And that's what I have for who has for casting. Mason was the Kubrick's first choice. Originally turned down the role because he had a prior engagement due to being a part of a Broadway play. Then the part was going to go to Lawrence Oliver. He refused to do the part. It was also suggested that David Niven accepted, but withdrew due to the fear of what what his sponsors would think. As in, like, he had a TV show called 4-Star Playhouse, and he was afraid that the sponsors would pull out if he were to have that role. And Mason ended up withdrawing from his play and ended up getting the part. The role of Claire Quilty was always going to be Peter Sellers, apparently. And Peter Sellers actually was able to discuss with Kubrick to expand the role, as opposed to what the role Quilty has in the novel. And Kubrick also allowed Sellers to adopt a variety of disguises throughout the film. And then originally for the role of Lolita was going to be an actress by the name of Jill Hayworth, but she was under contract to a different company. So she was under contract to Austrian American theater film director and film producer and actor Otto Ludwig Perminger, and he said no. Haley Mills of the who plays One of the twins in the original 1961 Parent Trap was offered the role, but her parents refused permission for her to do it, and eventually they ended up casting Sue Lyon, and that's all that I have for casting. And we will get into likes and Wait, no, sorry. Ted's gonna describe what this movie's about, and then we're gonna go into likes and dislikes.
I'm gonna try. So essentially, guy is moving towards the U.S. for a job. Moves in with his eventual wife, but falls in love with this 14-year-old. Marries the 14-year-old's mom in order to be closer to the 14-year-old. The mom dies. Then he essentially kidnaps this child so they can have some sort of romantic relationship. Then
that is heavily applied. That's heavily implied to be sexual, although not extremely explicit.
We're gonna get there because my likes and dislikes are going to be largely roasting Stallman. So we're gonna continue with this plot. So they've now engaged in this romantic relationship. They're traveling to God fucking knows where. And then the girl escapes him. He tracks her down, and then you get to the end of the movie, which is also the beginning of the movie. And yeah, it's convoluted, but it is what it is. I'm just gonna let you take the floor, Stallman. Do likes, dislikes, the whole damn fucking thing. I'm gonna clean up.
I don't know where to fucking start. Like. I think we'll go with likes. I think this movie, with the exception of possibly Shelley Winters and Peter Sellers, is very well acted. I think James Mason acts his part very well. I think Sue Lyon does very well with the character of Lolita. I really am do praise this movie, compared it to the novel, that Lolita is a lot more fleshed out. You see like a lot more emotion on her side of things, and as opposed to just being like 100% just an object. I
We collecting thoughts, or
yeah, I'm trying to come up with like I don't know if it's a positive, but I do think that having the ending at the beginning does make it a better with the storytelling, because it does make it makes it a little bit easier to follow along, because you would not know who Peter Sellers' character is, and then until like there's like a like a reveal at the end, but like nothing would have made sense if you didn't have that at the beginning.
Correct.
And I also will say this as a positive. This movie, for at least me, was able to make me a little bit emotionally invested, if that makes sense. That being said, I was extremely pissed off while watching this the entire fucking time. Because like almost all these characters are very unlikable. Like they're all like all the adults in this film are pieces of garbage. Complete and total pieces of fucking garbage. And it's practically very, very well done. At the same time, I don't particularly like the subject of the movie, if that makes sense. And I think that's mainly because of how grounded a lot of the characters are, that it makes it a little bit more realistic, and therefore like you don't really have it's I guess, for lack of a better word, touches close to home as opposed to like watching something that I guess a good example would be like a Clockwork Orange, because like I love a Clockwork Orange, but like the main character is a fucking awful human being, completely out throughout the entire thing. But I'm not really bothered by his actions in that because it's so like, I guess it's more dwelled into like the realm of fantasy as opposed to reality, if that makes sense.
Well, yes, but also I feel like this needs context. Okay? So for just half a second, I need you to remove the book from the movie. I recognize that the book is gross. Guys, did you know Lolita is a book? Stallman read it in high school. Anyway,
unfortunately, so and it wasn't by choice.
So separate what's in the book from just this movie, okay?
Yeah.
Pedophilia is gross. No ifs, ands, or buts. No way around it. Nothing whatsoever. Okay.
Yeah, and it is heavily like it's like you can basically give it the benefit of the doubt that it's more of like a romantic thing, which is still fucking creepy. But like, there's a lot of innuendo and
back up. I'm giving context. Okay. So yes, pedophilia is wrong. However, man, I really have to pick words carefully. So
no, that's the tough thing about it.
So the plot doesn't happen if it's not pedophilia. And I don't say that because the movie is centered on this guy's a fucking cretin.
I mean,
it's centered on, like, yes, the dude's a fucking cretin, right? But like, the point isn't that he's a cretin. The point is a like really convoluted love story, right? When you read
he's also dwelling into madness.
When you read
over his obsession.
No, when you read Romeo and Juliet, right? Did it bother you that they were children, or was it okay because it was a timepiece? I recognize there's not a pedophilia element. That's not the question I'm asking, and I don't need to hear about it, right? It doesn't bother you that they're children. It's a sign of the times, right? They also went crazy because of the convoluted parts of their love story that they were coming from rival, right? But then it can just be a love story, right? So what I'm saying about Lolita as a film, not as a book, not as any other influence whatsoever, is that the convoluted part of why this story is so significant is because he had to marry her mom in order to get to the woman he was actually interested in. That doesn't happen if she's not a child. Because of this, at this point in time, if she's in her early 20s, that makes the mom significantly older enough that, like, it's still, like, pedophilia is not okay. It's not cool. It's still gross. It doesn't forgive anything that happens here. But the context of it is that the pedophilia is not important. And I think for the purpose of this movie, not the book, I have to continue to separate that, Stallman, because I swear to God, I'm going to lose my fucking mind the next time you tell me you read this book in high school. For just this movie, right? I think that, like, it creates that. It's what creates that craziness. It's what creates that tension, that divide, that uncomfortability, right? And because it's not explicitly in your face, right? Yes, it's insinuated, right? But the closest thing the closest thing that they actually get to crossing that line, right, is at the end of the movie where she says what we had, right? Acknowledging that it was more than a kidnapping, right? Like, it never, there's nothing that outright explicitly says this is pedophilia. Was it still gross? Yeah. Was it uncomfortable? A little bit, yeah. But there's nothing that's like, okay, that's a fucking crime because they filmed it, right? Like, there's nothing that, like, you want to put everybody in prison. That doesn't fucking happen here. I recognize that there are things from other places that make this seem far more gross. I'm saying for the context of the movie and what the story was, they took something really fucking disgusting that was a book, and then they turned it into a, maybe it's pretty fucking questionable, but I guess they can't prove that these things happened. And it just, like, the problem with it is that it just doesn't happen if she's an adult. Not justifying it, just explaining it. It requires context to tell the story instead of just, we watched a pedophile for 2.5 hours. Like, I'm just saying, like, I feel like explaining this movie and breaking it down requires some context. I needed to make sure that got there.
Yeah. Yeah, like this movie could have been easily very, very, very disgusting, but like, my main uncomfortable thing is like, you know, knowing I had a different context, as in like I read the book, so I know all the.
Did
it's
you
just
know
seeing
Lolita
like
was a book?
God damn it! But it's just seeing like how everything played out. Like a lot of the characters are very, very sleazy, and some of them are very shall we like the mom's case, extremely like fucking selfish on things. Although I do give her props for actually, you know, telling Humbert when she finds out that she'll never see her kid again, that he'll never see her kid again. Although she unfortunately seems to kind of blame Lolita for the entire thing, but at least, you know, she's making an attempt to protect her daughter. Even though the reasonings are not there, but I guess when we go into dislikes, I think the main issue with this movie is that it sort of tries to be a comedy, and some things like work and other things don't. Case in point, Peter Sellers' character has like, he tries to do like a lot of comedic things, and it just doesn't match with the tone with the rest of the movie, if that makes sense.
I'm gonna disagree with you, but only slightly. So
I mean, the beginning, I think he does fine, but like, there's some other scenes, it's just like, I think he hams it up a little bit too much, especially him like talking like he's on coke 24/7.
Well, look, I'm with you that like every character in this gets like way over dramatized, right? Like I think there's maybe an actor or two that doesn't really like strap it on, you know what I mean? But like, I mean, for the most part, everybody's super over the top. Yeah. I will agree with you there, but I think as far as like the quote unquote comedy aspect of this, like I think it's important.
I'm not gonna lie, I did chuckle when like when they go to the hotel room and it ends up being a police ball. It's like, get.
I think it's necessary for the entertainment value of the film, right?
Right.
My major complaint about the comedy is that it takes the story and it stretches it to unnecessary places to make you feel okay with it. So, for instance, when they get to the hotel room, right?
Right.
He doesn't sleep next to her, right? He's trying to get a cot. He spends the entire fucking night while she's asleep in the lobby of the hotel trying to get a cot. The cot comes into the room. It takes two of them to fucking unbend it and flatten it out on the floor. They're trying to let her stay asleep. The bellhop ends up fucking talking full volume. Thank you, sir. Right? Like, and just like the comedy of it there is like, okay, this is entertaining, right? It's slapstick fucking the low end of Three Stooges humor, right? But my major complaint with it is that it just takes up time that we didn't need to. We could have shaved 10 minutes off this movie right there if it was just, yep, we've got a cot, and then he sleeps at the foot of her bed. The as far as the comedy goes, though, I think it has its place in this movie somewhere, right? I think they could have incorporated all of the pieces a little bit better, but I think that the comedy being there, like, allowed them to tell the dramatics of the story without you just focused on he's a pedophile and shouting at the movie for an hour and a half. Like, I think it was used kind of as a device to make you recognize that, like, no, this is just a film. This isn't, you know, an expose on pedophile. Like, you're not watching fucking Dateline. This isn't Chris Hansen. Like, they're just telling a story.
That, and also, I honestly think like the story might have been like better if it were told, as opposed to like James Mason being a lover to Lolita if he was just a very, very overprotective stepfather. And then because like Lolita doesn't really fare out very well throughout this movie, even worse so in the book. Spoiler alert, she dies of childbirth at the end of the book. And
That's when Lolita was a book. Told you I was gonna do it to you. I gave you fair and ample warning.
But you threw me off, all right? But to me, it's like I really see a story of like a very overprotective like father figure who's trying to do what's best for his daughter and ends up pushing her away and destroying and ruining her life in the process. To me, I think that could have been a really interesting story to tell, and you could have had that with this, but
I think that if you didn't have the background of the book, you could go about looking at it that way. I think if you genuinely like, unfortunately, I'm friends with Stallman, and I don't get the basis of objectivity and having like not known that the book existed, right? Thus the memes of, hey, did you know this was a book? And Stallman read it in high school, right? So I knew what this was about long before we watched it. I think Lolita probably got mentioned in the first fucking Kubrick podcast,
I think you've seen this movie before too, but it was like a very long time ago, right?
What I'm saying is that, like, I think the way that the movie was filmed, you could probably get away with believing that it's an overprotective stepfather. Because there's nothing that inherently crosses that line, there's nothing that's super graphic, right? Yeah, it's heavily implied. Right. And I think most rational adults would probably recognize that, like, that's what they're insinuating. But I also don't think there's anything that explicitly says, yeah, them's fucking, right? Like, this could genuinely be like a father-daughter relationship that, like, the bond is just super close. There's nothing that, like, breaks that wall that forces you to believe that it is pedophilia.
Yeah, except for the diary scene where he calls her a fucking nymph, and it's like,
again, maybe there are some places that, that one I had forgotten about that one, so that's fair. My first complaint about this movie, outside of the very obvious that, like, why would anyone ever agree to make this into a film? Like, there's a whole room of people that need to be publicly executed. They read that book and like, you know what, this would be great on film. The biggest part to me was that this just kind of dragged. There was so much fluff, man. Like, there were so many things
which is also a complaint about the book.
I'm firing him. I'm gonna do this podcast myself next week. Anyway, there's like, it just seems that, like, on any given scene you could turn 8 minutes of material into 2. I think this would be a much more palatable movie if they condensed and made more, like, efficient choices.
Yeah, I agree, because, like, the editing in the beginning's, like, really quick, and scenes are really, 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 like, fast. They really rush into, like, rush the beginning of this film, and then the rest of it just drags out completely.
I don't even know that there was that much that, like, was quick in the beginning. I think the only scenes... The only things that really had any, like, rapid pace were, like, massive plot devices. So when he's touring the house tour took too fucking long. Yeah. But when they get to the backyard and he lays eyes on Lolita, you get like 6 frames of her in the backyard, and then you're back to like, was it the garden that brought her in? And then they move on, right? That but then they go right back to slowing down, right? In the scene where Lolita is leaving for camp that he's not going to see her again, she runs back in the house. She says, I hope to see you soon, or I guess this is goodbye. Whatever fucking corny ass, like, stereotypical line she fucking uses, right? Like, it's one sentence, she's in the house, she hugs him, she leaves, right? And then it's over. But then he goes into her room to, like, grieve the fact that he's not going to see her again, and he just lays perfectly fucking still for 3 minutes. Like, The plot points are the parts that go really fast. Everything else is like, okay, you could have made this 4 frames and I wouldn't have missed a goddamn thing.
I agree.
The other part to this to me is that the characters who were not main characters were so fucking extra, dude. I agree with you that every character in this has some level of culpability and is a complete and total slime bag. Every single one of them. Every adult in this is a complete and total shithead. However, the one that I hated the most was the mother, because everything was so fucking dramatic, dude. She is probably the closest thing we have to a good character in this movie, like someone who is on the side of good and righteousness, right?
With the exception of Lolita, but the problem with the Lolita is that she's a teenager and doesn't know any better.
She is a teenager seducing 2 men. Lolita is not innocent. She's equally as culpable. No, absolutely fucking not. The closest thing you have to a character who is on the side of good and righteousness is the mother. The closest thing we have. She's so extra and over the top that I hate her the most. You went to poop? Let me sit outside the door and tell you how bad I want to die. I can't see your face right now. Like, it's oh my sweet Christ, dude. It's so over the top. Like, I don't know how you can take a movie about pedophilia, right? You water it down to the point where there's questions like maybe it's not so gross anymore and it could be a father-daughter relationship. You recognize that there's one semi-decent human being in the entire fucking book about pedophilia, and you're like, let's ruin that one too. Fuck them all. Right? Like, how? All right. I don't know the details of making a fucking movie, okay? I don't know how, like, who pitches the idea, what boardroom full of people need to decide that it's okay, or who produces, or how, or when, or what. I don't know all the details. I won't pretend to. But I'm guaranteeing that there was more than one person involved in making this movie, between the actors who agreed, and the producers, and the writers, and the cameramen, and the lighting, and the sound, and everybody who agreed to be anywhere fucking close to this movie should be publicly executed.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, like, going with like Shelley Winters' acting in this is the worst role I've seen her in. Like, she's not a bad actress at all, but like, for whatever reason, we got the role that we did, you know?
Oh man, she was just so jaded about fucking parenthood and about relationships and about who the man she fucking married, and like, it just, like, there's just no sense of fucking believability, and she's over the top, and it just creates this like, hey, the only good character's also bad, haha, fuck you for watching, I guess. It's man, like, if that character was even halfway decent, I could have some sort of emotion and sadness that, like, oh man, really sucks the mom died, right? But no, like, I was a little bit happy she got hit by a car so I didn't have to hear her talk again. Like, man, it was so bad. It was sad
because I was there with you, and then when I was like doing research, and it's like Shelley Winters, I'm like, where the hell is Shelley Winters in this movie? And then I saw who she was, and I'm like, no, the most badass person in the Poseidon Adventure is the mother in this film. Like, come on.
All right, I'd rather be done with this one because I feel like we've talked about a movie surrounding pedophilia long enough. Do you have anything else before we do rankings?
Not really. I'm just excited for the next week's movie.
Fair enough. Why did I just... All of my shit's backwards. I need to go back and look at my rankings because I think I fucked everything up. Anyway, I think I am ranking Lolita second to last.
Really?
Yeah. This movie has redeeming qualities. And even ignoring all of the parts of this that are gross, right? And even if you ignore all of the parts that are gross and you just look at it for its ability to tell a story that wouldn't have happened without the grossness, right? Like, if you can ignore the parts of it that are abhorrent, right? I still think that they don't do a great job at telling the story. I think the plot is convoluted and jumbled. I think it drags along in places that it doesn't need to. I believe that there is a sense of believability that you can't necessarily like suspend.
So you're having this between Killer's Kiss and Spartacus, then?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm doing. And look, I want to tell you that like Lolita is close to Spartacus, but man, Spartacus is so bad. Lolita, it has its redeeming qualities. There are parts about this that are bearable. You can sit through this movie, and if you go in unimpeded by like the motives behind it, like if you go in without the book, without any prior knowledge, with whatever else, I think that you can sit through this movie, be objective, and say that it's decent. But I also don't think that like it sits with Killer's Kiss. I don't think that, like, man, I was so fucking angry at that movie. And I'm telling you that, like, it wasn't... That one didn't sit as badly as this one sat because of the way that the movie was filmed.
This is funny because, like, now I'm like, damn it, I really should have put Spartacus above Killer's Kiss and Fear and Desire. Because, like, I do think this is better than Spartacus, which makes this number 3 for me. What the hell? And the only reason why is because Lolita actually made me have an emotional response, while the other 3 movies I had like nothing. If that makes sense, like
That's
I just
fair.
kind of sat and watched them bored.
That's fair.
Honestly, if it wasn't for like the spectacle of what Spartacus was, that would be dead last.
Man, Spartacus just provided nothing. It was 3.5 fucking hours of goddamn nothing. At least this had something to it. So there's a massive gulf between the two. Don't get me wrong, but I also think that like as poorly as Killer's Kiss was done, right? Like at least the content of the movie was there. It was one cohesive piece, and this just kind of felt like watered down. It just really, it was awkwardly put together. That's what I'm gonna.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And even still, it would be 5th if you ignored all of the abhorrent, disgusting, gross shit. When you recognize that it's also disgusting, abhorrent, gross shit, it sinks a little further down. It's bad.
Up. Yeah. That being said, next week is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Finally, movies that I'm actually enjoying to I know I'm gonna enjoy to watch.
All right. As always, you can catch us both in the Discord to watch the movies with us on Tuesdays. You can also see us on Twitch, Stallman at Traductus and myself at Ted Green Eagles. We've got quite a few more Kubrick movies to go. I think 5 of them. I think.
Dr. Strangelove, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, The Shining,
Full Metal Jacket.
Barry Lyndon, then Full Metal Jacket, when Eyes Wide Shut. So I think 7.
Oh shit, dude, we got a lot to go. All right, 7 more movies, so you can catch us on 3 or 4 more Tuesdays.
Let me guess. You keep forgetting that he directed The Shining.
No, I remember he directed The Shining.
No. You forget about Barry Lyndon.
I did forget about Barry Lyndon.
You haven't seen it. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. But yeah, so we got a few more to go. You can catch some more Kubrick movies on Tuesdays with us in the Discord. Stallman usually posts in community events where you can get a hold of that. Otherwise, I think that wraps us up here. Sorry if you watch this podcast. Even more sorry if you watch the movie. Hopefully we get to some better content next week. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Oh, we will. See ya.